What a pleasure to be here to share with you, learn from you, natural family planning and how it supports better cycles, better fertility, and women's health overall. So we're dealing with the cycle, and so let's get that cycle moving. Okay, I've used that for a number of years, and that's not, oh, isn't this the bicycle seminar? Oh, no, oh, I'm okay. I got the right one. Just kidding. You know, what is the connection between women's health and natural family planning? Maybe you've wondered. Well, natural family planning, whether it's couple-to-couple eggs way or the Creighton method, or there are some other methods, uses the woman's natural monthly cycle to predict when she's fertile and when she's not fertile. Now that can be used by couples to avoid a pregnancy by avoiding relations during the fertile time, or alternatively, it can be used to support fertility by observing what that cycle looks like, how healthy it is, or maybe things we see in it that aren't quite right, but it can be used to achieve pregnancy. Natural family planning is usable over a wide range of cycle irregularities. Cycle irregularities are pretty common. However, it's worth saying that the truth is healthy cycles are preferable for a number of reasons. First of all, when the fertility cycle, by that it's often called the menstrual cycle. We natural family planning types like to say fertility cycle. When a woman has ordinary healthy cycles, it just gives her more satisfaction with her body. Her body works better. And because it's all about hormones making that cycle work well, her emotional health is better when her cycles are better. Right, husbands? And it improves her overall health. The monthly cycle of a woman is so integral to her, who she is, her health, that when it's working well, her overall health will surely be supported, and vice versa. When the overall health is good, the cycle generally is good. A good cycle empowers self-care, where the woman, the couple, can take care of their fertility, their desire to get pregnant, their desire to avoid a pregnancy, because when it works, it's kind of like, well, like not quite like everybody else's, but we understand it better. Here's something. If you are young, maybe not yet married, the parent of, as I am, I have 5 daughters out of the 9 kids, 4 of whom are age 14 and above, and that future fertility is so precious. Sometimes we don't appreciate it, but healthy fertility cycles, being aware, protects future fertility. And also, knowing about our cycles is very good to help restore fertility, and we'll be touching on that today quite a bit. It makes NFP easier to use, coming and going. Now, you must know I do teach anatomy and physiology. I have some pictures from my book. I'm not sure whether I've got a laser pointer here, but Ron has one back there, and I wonder if I could have it just to point out to you a little bit. Yep, it's in that bag. Okay? Yes. A laser pointer? There is one? Please.
By healthy fertility cycle, are you saying regular?
Not necessarily regular, but more regular is generally better. Okay? Here we go. Let's see if this works. Oh, it's there, you can hardly see it. What I want to do is go through a non-pregnant cycle. This is a timeline. By the way, you have handouts that may be helpful to you. Menses, we know, day 1, it's an easy marker. We're looking at the endometrium. It's shed and lost during the menses, and then of course over the cycle grows thicker and stronger. In a non-pregnant cycle, as the hormones change, a new cycle starts as the endometrium is shed again. But the truth is, that's when we call it the menstrual cycle. It's really the fertility cycle, as I pointed out, because what's really happening is in the ovary. In the ovary, a number of follicles are developing in the first half, more or less, of the cycle. What's a follicle? A follicle is a packet of cells, very tiny at first, but grows larger, even an inch in diameter. What's important about it? It does something. 2 things that are important. It produces estrogen early in the cycle, but more important, the whole point of the cycle in that follicle matures an ovum, an unfertilized ovum that is undergoing changes itself, and that ovum will be ovulated. At that time, 8 to 24 hours only, that ovulated ovum might be fertilized. That's why we say the fertility cycles. Well, we're not going to deal with the fate of the ovum right now. We're going to assume it's not fertilized, and we're going to look at that follicle. Now that it's empty, it's called a corpus luteum, yellow body in Latin. It's changed, and it still produces hormones, but the hormones are different. It produces large amounts of progesterone, and we call the second half of the cycle after ovulation the luteal phase. Luteal phase after ovulation, second half of the cycle, think progesterone, although there's a little bit of estrogen. Now, those are two hormones. First half of the cycle, estrogen, second half, progesterone. However, this is so delicately orchestrated by the hypothalamus, which produces the hormone GnRH, which stimulates follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, you guessed it, to stimulate the follicle early in the cycle. LH, luteinizing hormone, should be called ovulation hormone because you see it peaking here in green. It's what triggers ovulation. I'll be dealing with these hormones again, but I promise you I will remind you each time. There's no quiz in this class. Here's a couple-to-couple leg chart. You'll be seeing Creighton charts too, I'm sure. A couple-to-couple leg chart will show the mucus, which is integral to our method, developing in a way that couples can be taught. Women are taught to check it, and then going away, and that's a marker of ovulation coming and happening and then going away. We also, in couple-to-couple leg, the symptothermal method, we use the temperature, the basal morning temperature, and it does zigzag, but you can see in this nice, healthy-looking cycle, the rising of the temperature tracks progesterone. And so we know that ovulation has happened, that progesterone is in the system. By the way, this was from my daughter when she got married, my second oldest child, my oldest daughter. When I saw this chart, I just had the warmest, fuzziest, happiest feeling because I could see there would be grandkids. No, that's true. Okay, now there are other hormones that I'll be alluding to that have positive cycle effects. Thyroxine from the thyroid. By the way, when you look at this guy, this is from a McGraw-Hill book. You would think that these people know the difference between male and female if they're writing an anatomy book, but I wish I had a fig leaf, but so ignore that. Thyroxine stimulates all aspects of fertility. It's from the thyroid gland, and without it, or with low amounts of thyroid hormone, we often have problems of cycles, and the chart can help us perhaps recognize low thyroxine. Leptin, a lot of us are not aware that our body fat produces a hormone, produces several hormones. Leptin is the hormone from the fat cells that goes to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is would be shown at the base of the brain up there, and it tells that GnRH that, yep, there's enough body fat for this woman to get pregnant. Without enough body fat, without enough leptin, the cycles can stop. Now that's generally an easily reversible situation if the woman gains weight. But it's just, I mean, how nifty is it that God made us this way? That we have to have enough fat so that we can carry a pregnancy. Anyway, melatonin is getting a lot of press these days also. Melatonin is from the pineal gland deep in the brain, and when the lights go out, melatonin goes up. It's not just a powerful antioxidant, but it raises progesterone. Enough sleep is good for our fertility, and I'll touch on that a little bit. Some bad hormones. Well, all hormones are good. It's the wrong amounts of them that cause trouble. Elevated insulin is a problem. It can happen, and it is at the root of PCOD, polycystic ovaries, which I will specifically touch on before we end here. Cortisol from the adrenal glands That's the one, a lot of press about it as a bad hormone. Well, it's the stress hormone. It's not the like fight or flight stress hormone, like if you happen to be cruising along and you notice like red and blue lights behind you. Nope, that's different hormones. Cortisol is from ongoing chronic elevated stress in one's life. And it can interfere with estrogen and progesterone. That said, we should not stress over stress. Okay? Estrogen, of course it's a good hormone, but if it's too high, it competes with progesterone and knocks that progesterone down. Androgens are male hormones. I think this explains a lot about the difference between the sexes. Men have 10 times as much androgen as women, but that said, women have 1/10 as much. When the androgens, though, rise abnormally in a woman's body, that is related to polycystic ovary disease, and we're going to be talking about that. That can disrupt the cycle. Prolactin is a hormone from the pituitary. Let me see if I can show you the pituitary there, kind of right at the base of the brain. And it naturally rises during pregnancy. Excuse me, it does that too. It does rise during pregnancy, but I was meaning to say breastfeeding, and will inhibit ovulation for a greater or lesser period of time by decreasing LH. Sometimes in a woman who's not breastfeeding, high elevated prolactin can be a problem as well. Now, before we see how we can straighten out cycles, let's look at some of the things that can go wrong. Premenstrual syndrome. I have to say something about my old dad. My dad is 89 years old. He's outlived my mother, who lived to an old age as well. But he used to say, I knew about PMS before there was a word for it. Heavier prolonged menses, menstrual pain, and possible endometriosis. I'm going to spend a few slides looking at endometriosis. Short post-ovulatory phase. Many women are not aware that this exists or that it might happen to their cycles, but if you chart, you can see it, and there's great self-care for it. Long or irregular cycle lengths, lack of cycles, may be related to polycystic ovary disease. We're going to look at that one, and all of these might cause potential infertility, at least, well, not all of them, certainly not necessarily PMS, but sometimes the short ovulatory phase, the endometriosis, and PCOD can cause problems. But self-care, and well, that's where we're starting today, and that's where every woman and couple should start, with their own, helping their own body to function better. Adequate sleep. I don't want to put you to sleep talking about it, but there's a good chance that the majority of us in this room right now are not getting enough sleep. Sleep is now being discussed for high school kids going so early to school. Here's what I tell my college-age daughters. Sleep makes cortisol drop like a rock. Sleep makes cortisol drop like a rock, not just if you're in college. Sleep is so good to reduce stress. It renews us, it recovers us. We know that, we just need to be reminded. It also raises melatonin. Melatonin is the sleep hormone. When the lights go out, melatonin goes up, and that has been suggested, let's say, to improve progesterone. You're going to see progesterone is a great hormone. Improve daily nutrition. I'll be a little more specific about food choices, vitamins, minerals, and what are called essential fatty acids. Sometimes weight gain or weight loss is very, very helpful. That said, especially with weight loss, if it were easy, it wouldn't be a problem. One of the reasons weight is frequently a problem in fertility is because the very hormones that are giving us trouble are the ones that are causing us to hold on to weight. And I'll see how we can get around that a little bit. Moderate exercise. Moderate means moderate. Excess exercise is not healthy. It's great oxidative stress. What's excess? What's excess for you might not be excess for the other person. But moderate exercise and vigorous exercise is definitely helpful. So that happy medium, which is different for different people, is part of our self-care. And stress management. Again, the best way to manage stress is to get sleep. And actually, just for lack of time, I won't put you to sleep by talking about reducing stress, because maybe it would work. And this is the wrong time. So these are the 4 topics I want to really get into, or at least give an overview that I think would be helpful. PMS, luteal phase defect, endometriosis, all related, and then polycystic ovary disease, which is its own thing. Now, I'm going to start with PMS because back in the early 1980s, or even slightly before that, Dr. Guy Abraham was one of the first people to really put together cycles and women's health and their nutrition. He found, as you see here, that women with PMS, well, consumed more junk food in terms of sugar and refined carbs. Now, dairy products and animal protein, I think, are just fine, including animal fat, but even Dr. Abraham said at the time, our understanding of good nutrition would change, but let's agree the first two are not good. Women without PMS back then were consuming less sugar and refined carbs, more vegetables, more fiber, more vegetable oils, and they were self-dosing on vitamins. That's how this article is written up. Well, we need to define PMS, although, as my dad said, he knew about it before there was a name for it. I hope that doesn't, my dad so tenderly cared for my mother before she passed away. Certainly don't want to sound like he was just a macho kind of guy. He was that too, though, and still is. Anyway, the symptoms of PMS. The physical symptoms, bloating, carbohydrate craving, mainly for chocolate. Now, Dr. Abraham could never figure that one out. He should try some. The emotional effects, anxiety, mood swings, irritability, that which can be, as Dr. Hildreth has written, very harmful to family life, to the husband-wife and to the wife-child relationship. What makes PMS though is the timing of these symptoms. They occur typically a week before the period starts, as long as 2 weeks, and if it's real mild, just a couple of days. And these symptoms just kind of dissolve like snow in the sun. Bad analogy. Snow in the sun. Well, they resolve when the period starts, and menstrual pain, by the way, is not part of PMS. It is the premenstrual, before the period. These symptoms, there are many symptoms like acne or headaches, a number of different symptoms, and they might change cycle to cycle, but they happen in the post-ovulatory time, the luteal phase, and they resolve when the period starts. And, well, when do you get them? Well, obviously, you are going to be in your fertile years, typically ages 14 to 50. 40% of women have some degree of symptoms, and it peaks as you hit the what are called the perimenopausal years. The underlying cause is important to know. Low progesterone is thought to be the main cause of most PMS. What are we talking about? If you look at this is not labeled. Here's our progesterone nice and high on this good healthy chart in the second half after ovulation, second half of the cycle. What if the progesterone is too low or doesn't last long enough? In that case, often the estrogen will be too high relative to the progesterone. That's caused by the corpus luteum. That's the hormone gland for this month that secretes the progesterone and supposedly just a little bit of estrogen. But when that's off, not enough progesterone, it's called luteal phase defect. And to whatever degree that happens, it may cause PMS. And that's why understanding PMS is going to help us understand endometriosis and also what's called the luteal phase defect. Now, Dr. Abraham made this diet at the time. This was in the 1980s when we were into high fiber, low fat. But still, a lot of it's still very good. More greens, seeds, nuts, and beans. Salad oils with the healthy essential fatty acids. Fewer refined carbohydrates, read that, sugar and starch. Less red meat and less dairy, that's changed. But he was big on supplements, and what he studied about supplements is being validated again and again with newer research. Vitamin B6 was what he studied first. It goes like hand in glove with magnesium. He did studies on magnesium and PMS. Vitamin C at the time was not well studied, but I actually talked to him and I said, why so much vitamin C in your vitamins? He said, because it's good for hormones, and we'll see that it is. Essential fatty acids he talked about, there's a lot more studies now. He made something called Optivite PMT. He called premenstrual syndrome premenstrual tension. But now, you can't read this, neither can I. But I just want to show you, this was probably the first multivitamin that was tested under double-blind conditions for its ability to to modify, cut down on, decrease the symptoms of PMS significantly. We humans are not one size fits all. As you know, we are genetically different, and when we can get significant results, though, that's quite something. Not just that, but a few years later, an independent group took Optivite again and under double-blind conditions tested it for its effectiveness against PMS and got positive results. What's in it? Let me take my glasses off here or put them on. 1,500 milligrams of vitamin C, quite a bit of vitamin B6, 300 milligrams. Magnesium, not that much, but more magnesium than calcium, something Dr. Abraham always wanted to see. Folic acid, pretty much everything of everything. And when I talked to him about why these were put in here, this was the original multivitamin, but it was biased in favor of getting rid of PMS, and did so. Now, Optivite was found to raise progesterone. Keep in mind, getting that progesterone up is positive. We want to have that happen. And not just did in this study that I'm citing, and we'll call your attention to again, not only did it decrease PMS, this Optivite, but it also raised progesterone significantly. For those of you that are more scientifically minded, the P less than is the degree of confidence we have in the results. 0.05 is good, 0.01 or less is better yet. So it did help raise progesterone from really marginal to normal levels on average and decrease that high estrogen, which is also a problem. So here we know something. Why does that work? We're going to see. I want to get away from PMS and go on to our other topics, but self-care. Charting is very helpful, especially if the husband charts along with the lady, because then he knows when to expect it too. Improve daily food choices. I have food choices that are a little different, a little updated compared to the original research. Vitamins, minerals, and essential fatty acids, which I'll explain in a little bit. Adequate sleep. And moderate exercise, especially outdoors. Even today, that bright sunshine coming off that white snow is good for us. You know what? It lowers melatonin now. That's good. Helps us sleep better at night. And so we push down the melatonin with bright light, especially outdoors. At night, turn off the light. It's very helpful to get the melatonin up. Melatonin helps you sleep. Now, my book is going to be updated. I have to say, though, that I still feel like, even with the new information that's coming out, the basics are still intact. Good nutrition is good nutrition. I want to, though, I explained to you, the original book has 12 rules for better nutrition. Well, I have updated these 12 rules a little bit, and so I'll explain this to you. In my new book, see, 5th edition, not published, it's all written in my brain. Have you ever heard people say that? That's meaning it's going to be a long time getting that all out. Anyway, but enough protein. We don't need excess protein, but protein does something we want out of a fertility-based diet. We want good nutrition, good vitamins and minerals and foundational nutrients like amino acids from proteins, and we want blood sugar to be steady. Blood sugar to be steady. Protein does that. It has lots of nutrients in it, and it levels out the blood sugar. Animal or plant protein makes me no difference. I think eggs and red meat and milk are all good foods, and beans and grains are all good foods, unless you personally have an intolerance. Those whole plant foods, greens, beans, nuts, seeds, vegetables, and fruits, we hardly know how good they are. The phytonutrients haven't even been named, but they're antioxidants, they're anti-inflammatory. What's not to like about whole plant foods unless you personally are intolerant? Healthy fats and oils. Now we know that saturated fat's not as bad as, say, Dr. Abraham thought. And then I have some practical things here, more nutritious ingredients, and increasing the variety of foods, avoiding your food intolerances. This number 6 here at the bottom still holds, and this is probably should be right at the top. Sharply limit sugar intake, the refined sugar. The fruits are generally just fine. Pure water instead of soft drinks. Soft drinks are worse than we think. Dissolved sugar throws our blood sugar up, and then we react down much faster than the kind that you chew. And I will have more information as I write my book. Again, it's all written in my brain about improving digestion by relaxing at the supper table, chewing our food, fasting, well, not fasting, but not grazing. Grazing's hard on our digestive system. Snacks aren't, but constantly eating is a bigger problem. Good choices when you eat away at home. I see there's wonderful choices here, so I'm sure that everybody who is interested in natural family planning, we're just naturally kind of holistic. We want good nutrition as well. Enlist your family's cooperation. It's very hard to change from a poor diet to a better diet when the kids are not on board. But my favorite rule, the 12th one, is use the 80-20 rule. I owe it to my husband, Ron. This has been it just made life with good nutrition just as pleasant as possible. What's the 80-20 rule? Well, I'll define it with a picture. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Okay, that's my daughter, who was 4 at the time. She's 14 now. In our yard at our older daughter's wedding reception, which was held outdoors, and you can see that grin on her face. I don't know that she knew that there was a camera there, and she absconded with a piece of cake. But at any rate, don't sweat the small stuff. Life, a lot of the fun that we have is eating together. And when we have guests over, we absolutely have dessert. And in fact, we had some international students recently, and I know that they eat white rice. I always eat brown rice. I bought some white rice so that I didn't want my international guests to feel like, I wasn't serving the right food. That's the 80-20 rule. Daily food choices are more important than vitamins and minerals. And this old cookbook, which I still love, it's the La Leche League one, Eating at Home, is a reminder. That's where you get your best food. Eating at home reduces your stress. It saves a ton of money, right? And it's the best family time. Even making the meal together is family time. Doing the dishes together is family time. And looking at Ron, right? It is if Ron gets to wash dishes. He thinks washing dishes, like you just stand there, whereas everybody else has to do that. But it is. We sometimes pray the rosary when we're doing the dishes. But anyhow, that's in contrast to supplements. Supplements, vitamins and minerals and essential fatty acids are a far second behind good nutrition, what you eat, but they're important also. They're pretty basic. Vitamins and minerals, in my book and in my new edition, I'll be recommending Optivite again, but there's something better than Optivite I'll be discussing with you. It's called ProCycle, and something called Fertility Blend. For pregnant women, there's a vitamin I really like called Professional Prenatal Formula. For men, Androvite for men. Now, you probably think I have financial interest in selling vitamins. Boy, I wish I did, but I don't. Okay. It's simply these, I believe, are the easiest way to get the most for the least money, as opposed to, but it doesn't matter if you choose better or different supplements. That's certainly your choice. The essential fatty acids, I want to give you a short course on flax oil, fish oil, and krill oil. Who's heard of krill oil so far? Okay, well, we'll get you educated on that. In brief, linoleic acid and alpha-linolenic acid are 2 essential fatty acids, fat-soluble nutrients. A lot of people really are not aware of them. Now, the one on our left here, we actually get too much of it, is what most researchers think, unless you're already eating a very good diet. It's called omega-6. That's the biochemical stuff, double unsaturated. Most cooking oils have it, like corn oil, safflower oil, soy oil. It's often excess, and when a good thing is in excess in the body, it's a bad thing. Alpha-linoleic acid on our right here, that is the famous omega-3, heart-healthy, essential fatty acid. We don't need that much of it. We need like a teaspoon or that much per day. It's tough to get, and that's why we value it so much. If it were excess, we wouldn't like it either, but it's hard to get. What does the omega-3 fatty acid do, or the omega-3 fatty acids? They are precursors to molecules that are signal molecules from all cells called prostaglandins. Even researchers will divide the prostaglandins, these signal molecules, into good prostaglandins and bad prostaglandins. Well, the omega-3s are the precursors to the good prostaglandins and block the production of the bad prostaglandins. They actually enable the hormone to, in effect, to stimulate particular cells easily. So the hormone is made more effective by having enough of the omega-3 fatty acids so that the cells that it's signaling can respond to it. But here's bottom line, if we remember nothing else, the omega-3 EFAs, essential fatty acids, are highly anti-inflammatory. And anti-inflammatory is so big in studying whether it's heart disease, whatever it is, but particularly in certain female reproductive problems, reducing inflammation is quite valuable. Sometimes it's just worth doing whether we think it's involved or not. Well, I've recommended flax oil since about 1998 in the various editions of my book, and I've had very fine success in terms of counseling women to add flax oil, and especially for infertility or, well, for a couple of things. Why flax oil? What's so good about flax oil? It is 55% by weight this good alpha-linolenic acid, this omega-3 essential fatty acid that we don't get enough of. There's no place easily available to get anywhere close to that. The second most common way of getting it is pumpkin oil, which you can purchase. It might have up to 15% of what we're looking for. Soy oil, canola oil, you can see only have a little bit of our valuable omega-3 alpha-linolenic acid. Olive oil, good as it is, and I just cooked my fish last night in olive oil, doesn't have any. Corn oil, none, and the other ones, none. I believe that its good effect, and I've seen good effects from it, come from it producing this essential, or giving us this essential fatty acid, but it also has weak estrogens in it that do two things. It's been recommended for women after menopause to give them a little extra estrogen, and yet it's been recommended for men to decrease their estrogen. How's it do that? Well, it seems to boost up if you're real low and block if it's a little high. But I'm not sure that that is a major effect. I will say it is helpful for heavy bleeding. Ladies, give it a try. 2 or 3 days before you expect your period, take 2 or 3 capsules of flax oil, take it during the period, and you'll be amazed how much it lightens that period, which is quite healthy. PCOD, where we might need a little estrogen effect, it's good for that. Infertility, again, anecdotally, I've used it. Please?
Flax seed?
No, flax oil.
So flax seed is not as good?
Flax seed is only good if it is ground, and you would need 3 times as much. It's actually better because you get fiber with it also, but you have the inconvenience of unfortunately having to grind it and so forth. If you don't grind it, it's easy in, easy out, and you can plant it and it'll grow. Okay. Good for infertility, good for menopause. Let's go on to fish oil, though, which is much better studied, and it's very good for brain development in the unborn child. We call our grandkids, which we think are so brilliant, fish oil children. It's been used in Norway for menstrual cramps instead of ibuprofen, and successfully. It bypasses the need for alpha-linolenic acid. Now, this is a bad analogy when I'm talking about nutrition. It's the only one I got. Let's imagine the body needs cake, okay? There's 2 ways the body can get cake. Can't make it from scratch, and that's true of our essential fatty acids, but there's 2 ways we can get what we need. We can get a cake mix and add in the water and the eggs and the butter and so forth and make cake, or we can go to the bakery and get the cake pre-made. Alpha-linolenic acid from the flax oil is like the cake mix. You need vitamins and minerals. This fish oil produces what's called EPA and DHA, long names, which we don't need to deal with. But that's the pre-made stuff. That's what the body does with alpha-linolenic acid. It makes these 2 omega-3 fatty acids. These are the heart-healthy fish omega-3s. And now we can get fish oil or cod liver oil, toxin-free, even lemon-flavored. We give it to our old dog, but not the lemon-flavored. She likes the fish-flavored stuff, the old stuff. These are not strictly essential. Not strictly essential. Why? The cake mix, the alpha-linolenic acid, as in flax oil and some vegetable oils, cells can change that into EPA and DHA. However, it takes a laundry list of vitamins and minerals to do so. Well, if you're going to use fish oil, you should have it contaminant-free. I like fish oil in terms of recommending it for fertility and for various problems. However, I also have had enough success in counseling flax oil that I often will counsel one or the other or both. Now, the new kid on the block, this krill oil, that I even saw it in Walmart, although I would suggest that when you buy supplements, I try to get the best quality that you can afford. What it is, it's got the omega-3, EPA, and DHA, the pre-made, this is the cake. In fact, this is the top of the line stuff. Why? Bioavailable. Bioavailability is a big keyword. The way it's complex, and if you have a little bit of background in biochemistry, talk to me afterwards, and I'll explain why it's more bioavailable, but you get the EPA and the DHA, but you get something better yet. Astaxanthin is a very powerful antioxidant. It's related to beta carotene, the orange stuff in carrots. In fact, it's a dark red color. It has been studied. I have an article cited in my 4th edition book, my 2009 book, that it has been used successfully against male infertility. But it is such an important antioxidant that you kind of get a twofer. You get your essential, or your omega-3 essential fatty acids or fatty acids, and you get this powerful antioxidant. Krill they're small, they're invertebrates, they're related, they're like little shrimp. And they're found in the Antarctic. They're very, very, very plentiful. It's thought even people who are very concerned about the ocean believe that these are sustainable species. Krill oil is not as well studied, but I am confident that we can suggest krill oil in place of fish oil and have a benefit of it. There's just one thing, it is more expensive. I just recently bought some myself because I'd like to try stuff if I'm going to recommend it. Not to have my fertility restored at this time, I don't think that's likely to happen, but I saw my daughter going to the cupboard. I says, hey, I just want you to know something about those krill oil capsules. They're $1.10 each. But you know what? There are times when this might be so valuable to overcoming our cycle problems. Anyway, how do we use them? Heavy periods, flax oil is good for that. PMS, flax oil I would recommend, or fish oil. Breast tenderness, menstrual cramps, as I mentioned, there are studies. There's a study actually done with Catholic high school girls in Cincinnati, having them use fish oil instead of ibuprofen, or first, and ibuprofen only if it didn't help, and it really did help them. For pregnancy, for the health of the mother and the development of the unborn baby, male and female infertility both, menopause, how much? I have amounts here. Flax oil, basically 5 to 10 1-gram capsules, or if you like the taste of flax oil, and you probably don't, 1 to 2 teaspoons. Fish oil, about a teaspoon. The krill oil, even a gram, like these capsules I was telling you about, it's so concentrated, so bioavailable, it's good stuff. Flax oil and fish oil require vitamin E as an antioxidant. Krill oil brings its own antioxidant. So I'm excited to see more research on krill oil for fertility. Now, look at my clock here. Oops. And let's look at luteal phase defect. You already know a lot about it because you already have learned about PMS. The corpus luteum in that second half of the cycle is not putting out enough progesterone, or long enough, not enough or long enough, and the estrogen might be too high. If you've heard the term estrogen dominance, that's what we're dealing with in the second half of the cycle. It's a silent imbalance, meaning many women who don't chart will have very regular cycles and think everything's all right, but when they chart, they discover that in fact, you can see this particular defect. That is the technical term for it, luteal phase defect in the research. What do we see in a chart? Well, let's look at it. We might see what's called postmenstrual brown bleeding. The normal period ends kind of light colored. A delay in ovulation, poor temperature rise because of poor progesterone, PMS, poor progesterone, short luteal phase. The temperature goes up, the mucus dries up, and then the period starts. And sometimes it starts with spotting. It may relate to infertility because of poor implantation. See, that good progesterone is making the endometrium real thick. If pregnancy would happen in this cycle, the implantation of the newly conceived child would happen right there when that endometrium is real thick. What if progesterone is so low that we don't get a thick endometrium? An early miscarriage could happen, sometimes even unbeknownst to the woman. Well, let's go on here. Oops. What am I? See what's happening here. There we go. This is a normal chart, same one I showed you, showing the one thing to take away from this is the high temperatures showing high progesterone. This is a chart from a different woman. You can see if you just look, the mucus pattern isn't that good either, but I just want you can see that the zigzag, progesterone pushes that temperature up. It just won't go there, and when it eventually seems to get up, the woman's soon on her period. That's an example of what it looks like on a chart. What's causing it? Well, the whole cycle, the second half of the cycle, is the fruit of the first half of the cycle. So low preovulatory FSH and LH can be a problem. Excess estrogen pushes down progesterone. Overweight is a source of excess estrogen because body fat produces estrogen. That's true in men and women both. And so that can be something that can be looked at in terms of self-care. Low thyroid, definitely involved. Excess exercise has been studied. For example, college athletes that are very, very competitive can end up with cycles, but the luteal phase defect. Is it reversible? Yeah, it is. Elevated prolactin is not so common, but can cause it also. Well, let's, I wanted to make that point, that the second part of the cycle is a fruit of the first half. It turns out that Dr. Abraham studied vitamin B6 in women with PMS and infertility. Read that, luteal phase defect. And of these 14 women who were infertile with PMS, they were given just B6, which raises progesterone, and actually, very strikingly, 11 of 14 conceived in 6 months, 9 carried to term. The progesterone levels did go up. Let's jump ahead another generation. Vitamin C is being shown to raise progesterone. Here's a study with women with luteal phase defect. Notice that's the name of the top, or the research there, and infertility. They took 750 milligrams of vitamin C. Now, if you think that's high, Optivite has double it. That's all they did, and 25% of them conceived within six months, only 11% of control, so it was helpful. Of those who took the vitamin C, about half of the women had significantly increased levels of progesterone. 7.51 is low. 13.27 is within the normal range. And so it is effective. Now, what about the other half? For us human beings, we can't expect that one thing will help all of us, but this is very promising, at least for some women. Folic acid, here's a new study from what's called the BioCycle study. It was 2 years of taking women with normal weight, normal cycles, normal menstrual periods, and they were not to take any vitamins. You couldn't be in this study if you were taking any vitamins. They had very careful food recall, 24-hour food recall, and were able to estimate pretty closely their folic acid, natural folate versus folic acid from fortified foods, and found out that if you ate more folic acid from fortified foods, your progesterone was higher. You think about what would happen if you supplemented just in an ordinary way. folic acid is known to improve fertility. It not only improved their progesterone significantly, but it decreased the chance of anovulation, that is, having cycles without periods. Anybody ever hear the Clear Blue Easy Fertility Monitor? I don't think any of us Creighton practitioners or couple-to-couple league teaching couples even suggested, because the chart will show us when we're fertile, but this is used by some natural family planning providers and users. Optivite, I already mentioned this, raises progesterone. Same study that I called your attention to. Why does it do that? Well, probably because it's got the B6 and the vitamin C and the folic acid in it. But I want to show you something better. See, Dr. Abraham tested this stuff under double-blind conditions, doesn't have any sense of marketing, you can still buy it, but he never improved it. Well, a pharmacist by the name of Marla Algren, in fact, was able to take the original formula and improve it, over the years, and we got something that I like a lot better called ProCycle. ProCycle has the same vitamin C, it's got a little more A, it's got the same B6, it's got enough folic acid so that if the woman is preparing for pregnancy, she's covered that way. It's got a little more magnesium, and it's just better all around. It's iron-free. Iron upsets lots of people's stomach. Again, I know I sound like a salesperson, don't have a penny involved here, but I do like it and I recommend it over Optivite. Here's another thing that I recommend. Fertility Blend, completely unrelated. It has a complete different approach to raising progesterone, and you get the idea, raising progesterone is good. It's chasteberry, an herb, put together with green tea, which is an antioxidant, and it's a proprietary blend. Well, it was studied under double-blind placebo conditions in women who had low progesterone. When I look at this number, it's hard for me to believe these women were even ovulating. Fertility Blend increased their progesterone quite significantly. And in non-conception cycles, the Fertility Blend kept the temperature up a couple more days. That's more progesterone. And by the way, we have seen that over the years with Optivite and ProCycle in our clients who choose to use it when they have short luteal phase. Not like a huge increase, but 2 or 3 days. Well, in 6 months, this helped conception occur. Short luteal phase defect can be a cause of infertility, a very significant increase in pregnancy. In other words, 32% of women who took the stuff versus only 10% of those who did not. Now we could say, well, gee, only 1/3 of these women who took it got pregnant. But 1/3 is a lot more than none at all. And one size simply will not do everything. My recommendations, the 12 rules for better nutrition, that is whole foods, but we don't need to limit, in my opinion, milk or meat unless you personally are intolerant of it. Or Guy Abraham's old PMS diet. ProCycle I like better, not additional B6 or vitamin C or folic acid or magnesium. They're in there. Weight gain and less exercise for someone that's really pumping that iron way over what they need to do. Weight loss, if possible. And chasteberry, if desired. Now, I'm looking at the clock here, and may I just take another 10 minutes?
I know our next speaker has a time. Okay, our next speaker I know cannot stay the whole time.
Okay. Would you like to talk about endometriosis privately afterwards and call to a halt right here? Okay. And you do have the notes, and I would certainly not prefer to go over time. Thank you very much then.